Alright, so we're ready to make the stamen for our wild clematis. Now in the book or the PDF, if you have either of those, I do tell you to cut a specific amount of wire and string beads as needed for these continuous loops that we're going to be doing. But for the video, I wanted to show you that you can pre-string for these units if you'd like. So we're going to be making two pieces for our stamen, a unit A and a unit B. The one I'm going to be making here is unit A. Now to string beads for unit A, you're going to start with 10 white and then 1 green. And then you're going to be doing basically the same 10 white, 1 green 7 times. But if you want to count 20 between, that would probably be easier. So 10 white, 1 green, 20 white, 1 green, and you'll continue that until you have 7 of the green, and then after that last green, you will add 10 white instead of 20. So the pattern for unit A is 7 continuous loops using 21 beads per loop, and then that's going to be 10 white, 1 green, 10 white per loop. Now, just like with normal continuous loops, you need to leave a small 2 or 3 inch tail wire at the beginning. And then you're going to count out the beads you need for your first loop. Now, because we've pre-strung, you should only need to count the beads in the second half of your loop. So you're going to count out 10 white beads on the second side. And then we're going to fold that in half. So that green bead should be right at the tip of your loop. And then I'm going to grab both sides of these beads, and I'm going to twist 1, 2, 3 times to twist those 2 wires below. Alright, so there's our first loop. And again, we're going to count out those same number of beads, but you should only need to count in the second segment. So 10 beads. So 10 white, 1 green, 10 white. You'll leave a small space in our wire, just enough space that you have room to twist and then have a little bit of space left over. You're going to fold those beads in half. Hold them tight between your thumb and forefinger so that no gaps form between any of the beads. And I'm going to go ahead and pinch that closed because I don't want that to be an open loop. And then I'm going to twist. 1, 2, 3. And there's my second loop. Oh yeah, and I'm going to count out 10, 10, 1, 10. Leave a small space, and I usually hold that with my thumb and forefinger so that space doesn't shrink while I'm twisting, or while I'm forming my loop here. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so I'm making my last loop here. Alright, so now I've got my 7 loops complete, and I'm going to close unit A a little bit differently than you would a normal continuous loop unit. We want this to kind of look like a little tuft. We're going to put one of these loops right in the center rather than closing it into a circle. So I'm going to take my working wire, the one that's still attached to my spool, and I'm going to cross it over my unit down between that second and third loop that I made. And I'm going to pull that tight, which is going to bring that 7th loop that I made right into the middle. And I'm going to hold that tight on the bottom of my unit. And I'm going to switch to the starting tail wire, the little short one. And I'm going to loop that starting tail wire around the 6th loop. So you have the 7th loop right here in the middle, and I'm going to loop around the 6th one just once, which will close those 6 loops into a circle around the 7th. And then I'm just going to fold those outer 6 loops right up around. And then I've got both my wires down here at the bottom, and I need to twist them together. I'm going to try and put these about right in the center. And you don't need to twist down very far, just enough to secure it and then have a little bit of a stem there. But you do want to cut a little bit of excess wire just so you'll have enough length to attach it to your flower stem. Alright, so that one's Unit A. If you're making the full stem, you need to make 2 of these, 1 for each flower. Alright, so I showed you the basics of how to make one of these units using the continuous loop technique. So this here is Unit B, and we're just going to talk about this one. Now, of course, you can pre-string your beads for this if you like. I've made, again, 7 continuous loops, but this time there are 25 beads per loop. We have 12 white, 1 green, and then 12 white again on the other side. Now we're going to close this unit a little bit differently than Unit A. We are just going to put this one into a circle, and then we're going to center our stem wire. So we're going to take the working end of our wire, and we're going to loop it around that first loop that we made to close the unit into a circle. And I'm going to loop around it once. Now I do want to center this, so I'm going to take my working wire over the bottom of the unit, and I'm going to loop around 1 loop on the opposite side, just once. And so our stem wires are on opposite sides of our unit, and then I'm going to twist them together about in the center below all the loops. Alright, so there is Unit B. And just like Unit A, you need 2 of these for the full flower stem, 1 for each of the flowers. So I've already strung my size 11 light blue seed beads onto 24 gauge copper core wire in a light blue color, and I'm ready to make my clematis petals. The pattern for the petals is going to be 7-row basic frame, 1-inch basic row, pointed bottom, pointed top, and then we're going to reduce to 2 bottom wires. Alright, to start out we need to construct our basic frame. Now the pattern says that our basic row is going to be 1 inch of beads, and that is row number 1, the one that's right in the middle of your petal. So we're going to measure out 1 inch of beads, and we're going to bring that pretty close to that top wire. We only need enough room up here to make just a few wraps of beads, so we don't need a great deal of space. Alright, then we're going to take some bare working wire below, and we're going to cross it over itself right below that basic row. I'm going to pinch and hold the basic row and the working wire together with one hand really tightly so it doesn't move around. And then with the other, I'm going to twist the 2 wires below just a little ways down. And then I'm going to straighten this out by pulling on opposite ends. Alright, so we have our basic row right here in the middle. We have our top wire up here above the basic row. We have our twisted wire here is the bottom wire. And then of course our working wire is strung with beads and still attached to our spool. And we are ready to go to wrap the rest of our rows. I mentioned that this one is row number 1, so we're going to wrap row number 2. So I'm going to bring my beads all the way down. I'm going to make sure that they are pressed all the way against that bottom wire below the basic row. And then I'm going to fold those beads directly beside the basic row. And I'm going to mold them into shape to make sure that I don't end up with any gaps in that basic row. You don't want something that looks like this. So put them directly beside each other. Now our pattern tells us that we need a pointed top. So we're going to cross our working wire over the top, over the front of that top wire, making a 45-degree angle. I'm going to pinch and hold that new row and the basic row together just so I have a little bit more control. So everything holds in place while I wrap. So again, I'm going to go at a 45-degree angle, and then I'm going to wrap around the back of that wire and then to the front again. And as I'm crossing over the front, I'm going to angle down, again making a 45-degree angle, this time with the basic row. So there's row number 2. And for row number 3, we need to slide more beads down from our spool, and we're going to push them all the way up and make sure that they're covering that top wire completely. And then I'm going to rotate my petal because it's easier to work the top. And again, I'm going to mold this row of beads right beside that basic row. And I'm going to pinch and hold them in place. And we're making a pointed bottom, so we're also going to take our working wire and cross over that bottom wire at a 45-degree angle. You'll measure the beads you need to reach that wire. Hold tight. And then we're going to wrap around. And then again, we're going to angle at a 45-degree angle with the basic row. So there's row number 3. And again, I'm going to slide more beads down from my spool, make sure that they're covering that bottom wire completely. I'm going to rotate my petal as I wrap the next row of beads around. And I'm holding really good tension on this row of beads because I don't want any gaps to form between any of my beads while I'm wrapping. And again, I'm going to pinch and hold that row together to make sure it doesn't move out of the way. I'm going to measure the beads I need to reach that top wire, and I'm going to cross over at a 45-degree angle. Pinch and hold right there at the top while you wrap. This gives you more control. And then angle down at a 45-degree angle. Alright, so we're going to make row 5 the same way. 45-degree angle, tap, 45-degree angle. We need 2 more rows of beads. Now sometimes what I like to do with this basic frame is I like to kind of lift and push those beads down to make sure that they get right on top of that bottom wire. I don't want any wire seams to show in the middle of my petal here. So make sure you're covering it completely. And again, I'm going to rotate as I wrap up. And I'm going to pinch and hold all those rows together. 45-degree angle with that top wire. And I'm going to wrap around. 45-degree angle. Bring more beads up. And our last row. And because this is the last one, we're going to need to tie off our working wire. So I've already wrapped once there to secure that row. And I'm going to wrap one more time directly below that first wrap. So I make like kind of like a little coil looking thing at the bottom there. That's going to tie off our working wire. And then we're reducing to 2 bottom wires. So I'm just going to cut that working wire right at the tie off. Alright, now I've made my loop pretty close to that top of that petal, so I'm going to undo that. And then I'm going to cut that short. And then you can just fold this to the back of the petal. That'll finish off that top wire. And then for these bottom wires, I'm going to twist them together down about 1 inch. You don't need to go much further than that. And you want to try and make this twist as smooth as you can. Any super lumps there are going to make super lumps on your flower stem. And then I'm going to cut open this bottom loop right along the side so that my wires end up at different lengths. Alright, so there's our finished petal. Now if you're making the full stem of the wild clematis, you need to make 8 of these, 4 for each of the flowers.